Hey guys, Colorado Dave here. Just trying to do something a little different here today. I am showing you my top 10 knives. These are my top 10 knives, and I can say this because I had about 30 knives about a month ago, or say a couple weeks ago, and I sold off 2/3 of my collection. We'll talk later about why I did that exactly, but what I'd like to say is, these are the top 10 that I ended up with, and I want to talk more about why do I have these 10, and what did I give up for these 10. So I want to get into it. I didn't write it down on paper, and I wanted to. I might even redo this video at some point, but I wanted to get this out because I think it's interesting, because a lot of people have, their collections grow as mine did. They get up to 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 knives, and they continue to just grow these collections. But a lot of these knives, they just don't get touched and they don't get used. Some of my knives weren't getting used as much as I wanted them to. These knives got used for the most part. There's two exceptions. Well, maybe three exceptions. But we'll get more into that here in a minute. But more importantly, I cut my collection down because of this knife right here. In January, I got my first Chris Reeve Savenza 31 large. And this is with the natural canvas micarta inlays. And I fell in love with this knife. It was the first Chris Reeve knife I'd ever put in my hand. Had never owned one, had never held one even. Not a lot of knife shops where I'm at. Where I am now, there's a beautiful knife shop that I'm getting ready to go out to. That's another story for another day, but that's here in Colorado. Back in Chicago, not so many good choices for knife shops. So in that breath, I really didn't have much experience, just going into a shop and being able to grab and hold and touch what I wanted to in the world of. So it's pretty much buy it, own it, and get to know it. So with these knives being as expensive as they are, it's a lot harder for me to do that. So anyway, as of January this year, this is a January 6th date on this, I was able to get my first Chris Reeve Savenza large. And again, this is the 31. Fell in love with it and decided to then get a Savenza 31 small. And this is in the S45 VN steel, which I got just a couple months ago. So needless to say, yes, I'm a Savenza fan. After getting the first one, I couldn't wait to get another one because it's just that cool of a knife. It's that much of a pleasure to feel, to touch, to hold, to cut with, to have in your pocket, to pull out of your pocket. It's a great knife. It truly is a special experience to own one and to handle one. And I feel very blessed to have two of them. So anyway, that's why those are in my collection. They're both newer. This actually came as of this past March, so an even newer knife. But again, why did I go from 30 down to the 10? And I'm probably going to go down lower than the 10. I'm going to get down to 5 here eventually, probably. The reason is that I did get these knives. I did realize I was carrying them pretty much 70 to 80% of the time, because I just loved them. And as far as them not being fidgety, as some people, refer to these knives as, I would disagree 100%, because I find them to be extremely fidgety, extremely smooth and graceful, and yet strong and yet classic. I don't know how Chris Reeve Knives does it, but they have mastered sticking with the traditional knife through all these years, and yet still staying at the top of their game. And it truly is an art what they do with knives. If you haven't seen it before, there's a video out there that Blade HQ did about 7-8 years ago, and it's where they do a tour with Chris Reeve through his knife plant in Boise, Idaho. And you can just see how much handwork is done on those knives and realize why they cost what they cost. And you'll actually consider them not to be that expensive after watching that video. At least you should, based on all the time that goes into each one of those knives individually. To me, they're basically custom knives. I don't look at it really as a production knife, because it's not like a regular production factory. These aren't just getting stamped out on a line. So really, there's something special. But anyway, I don't mean to keep rambling on about them, but they are obviously changed what I'm doing with my knives. The other reason I had to sell a bunch of knives off is I do have some basically important family business going on, and we needed to raise some money. for something that's going on with the family that I do want to discuss with you guys probably at another time and get a little bit more into it. But we got some very important things going on and a little bit of hardship. And so we have made a decision to sell off most of my collection. That was my commitment to help the family. And anyway, so in that breath, I'm cutting my collection back as well with the understanding someday I will rebuild it and make it big again. And I will do more reviews. In the meantime, I also plan on keeping a few good knives, as you can see here, and just spending all my time with them and sharing some of the different things that I'm going to do with them with you guys, and maybe get a little bit more in depth than maybe some of the reviewers that are, reviewing 200, 300, 400, 500 knives. I'm going to have just a handful of them, but hopefully I can talk to you about them a little bit more in depth and break them down and sharpen them with you, maybe even play in the kitchen with them a little bit, take them up in the woods with me, whatever, just kind of experience them a little different. So that's my thought there. But anyway, so that's why I'm going down to 10 knives. These are the 10 I still have. I would be willing to part with a couple more of them and get down to about 5. This just happens to be what's left of the couple quick knife sales I did. I just went on my YouTube channel and basically posted a knife sale for a day. Did it 3 different times. First time I sold 1, second time I sold 3, and the third time I sold 6, I think. And then I sold a few more on Blade Forums. So I ended up selling like 20 total. But anyway, in that breath, I really have cleaned up some knives that I'm going to miss greatly. There are some knives that I'm definitely going to miss that are no longer in my collection that I'm sitting here looking at going, where are they? There is one more knife I still do have in my collection. I just realized it is not out right now, and that is the Medford Smooth Criminal. So I do still have that as well, which is an awesome button lock knife that I also enjoy. So I guess I have 11 still. But I am going to thin it out to about 5, like I said. So let's go through what I have and why I still have it. Okay, let's go into the Sebenza we talked about already. Let's go into the ZT. This is the ZT 0562. This is the TI version, which is the titanium version. You're going to have a hard time finding a knife with this noise anywhere. It's just phenomenal the way it hums. I think part of it has to do with the way it's milled out on the inside. Part of it has to do with just the beautiful ZT action. The centering is just gorgeous down the middle. Love, love, love the ergos on this knife. It's the Hinder slicer blade is what's on here. It is a Rick Hinder design that's done through ZT. This is definitely one of my all-time favorite knives. I don't see this ever leaving my collection. Just love this knife. Really, 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 really do like this knife. So out of the ZTs, I had 7 ZTs, I think. And so that's all I got left out of all my ZTs. That's the only ZT I still have. Sold off all the other ZTs. I will tell you that I did pretty well with all of them. I take good care of my knives. And I got, good price for all of them. And I think so they do hold their value pretty well. I was impressed that way. This one I wouldn't sell either. A couple different reasons. This was a birthday present last year from my wife and my son. I have a couple sons, but this was from my Filipino son. And he helped me get this with his nursing money. And he pitched in with Mom. And they bought this for me about last October. And I couldn't be more excited. It's just a phenomenal knife. So thank you, Pierce. Thank you, Ann, for this one. I'll never get rid of it because it was a gift. And also, it's just a phenomenal knife. This is the one that's done by Phillips, Astaire Phillips, Australian guy. It's supposed to have kind of a culinary theme going with it, where it's good for cutting culinary-wise in a kitchen, and that was kind of his thinking behind it. It's very slicey because of that. One of the knives that I sold in my Spyderco world was my SpydieChef, which was very hard for me to give up. It was basically between this knife and my SpydieChef. Which one was I going to sell off? And this one, never even thought about it. I'm like, nope, I'm keeping it. And my SpydieChef, which, believe it or not, was probably my second most carried knife last year. Believe it or not, and I sold it. And it's because once I got this knife last October, which was towards the end of last year, I just didn't use the SpydieChef as much as I used to. And it's just because this knife is just that awesome. It fits in the pocket because it's so thin. It fits in the pocket nicer. The action is just phenomenal. It's just got really, really, really nice action. It's got a really long, slicey blade. You can really get down and cut things with this knife. You could with the SpydieChef as well. What I'm gonna miss on the SpydieChef is the LC200N steel. This does not have that. This has S30V, and it's okay. It's, you know, still a good steel. Definitely content with it. This knife is crazy slicey. It definitely retains an edge just fine, but it won't give you the same corrosion resistance that, say, you're gonna get out of that LC200N. So that is what it is. Next is gonna be the Drunken. This is one that I may still sell that's kind of sitting there saying that I really want to keep it because it's just the most beautiful, finest Spyderco knife that I think they've ever made. And I am taking that term from Dr. Franke as far as the term of saying it's the finest quality Spyderco knife he had ever held. And I would agree with him 150%. I wouldn't say it's the best. I would say it's the finest, meaning the quality of the materials, meaning the workmanship of that S90V steel and getting that stonewash polished look. And the tolerance is just being crazy, crazy tight. As far as the smoothness being like no other knife I've ever held in my hand ever. Really a special knife, really a special knife. If this was my only knife forever and I knew I could beat up on it, I would love this knife. I have not made a decision to make this a working knife yet because it's just so damn beautiful, I'll be honest. You know, with that and all the mill work that's done on this. Again, this is a Dmitry Sinkovich design. It's the only collaboration that he's done with Spyderco to my knowledge. Just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful knife. I almost feel like it's too nice for me to use. And that's the reason I'd be willing to sell it, as crazy as that sounds. So that's my thinking on that one, but I think it's a phenomenal knife. Another one that's still here, and this is here for a different reason. The reason this one is here, the reason that this Drunken is still here is because I really haven't given, you know, I haven't fluctuated on the price much, and it's because I really love the knife and I do want to keep it, and I haven't gotten aggressive to sell it because I'm not sure that I really want to sell it. I know it's a very good version of. I've seen some other ones that the blade had some more inconsistencies, etc., where mine's in very, very good shape. Now, that was my issue with the Drunken. With this knife, this is the Kuchi by Spyderco. This is a Paul Alexander design. This is the CQI version, okay? So it has a drop shutness to it. You can see the action's dynamite. It's just phenomenal. There is no issue with that blade touching your finger or sticking out or anything like that. I guess before they did the CQI, which is the constant quality improvement that Spyderco does. Before that, they did have some issues with this knife first time around. It scared some people off, and honestly, I think it made this knife an underestimated knife as far as what it is and the quality of it, because this is just such a beautiful knife. But it really doesn't get the rating it deserves because there was a bad batch, I think, that went out that wasn't quite right and had some imperfections in it, so that's too bad. But anyway, so the reason I still have this knife, I kind of kept the price high on it because I still really like the knife. I probably shouldn't have. I did drop it all the way down to $100 on a sale that I did last night. It was literally just like a 5-hour sale. I did not sell it, so I've taken it off the market again. But this is one I would probably sell. I just don't use it. I think it's a beautiful knife, but I just don't use it. And in that category, the biggest thing I would want this for is if I started wearing a suit on a regular basis again. I think it'd make a great gentleman's knife. And I've always said, you know, it would be the perfect knife to walk into a steakhouse with and cut your steak with and just really, you know, catch some people's attention as it's a beautiful knife. This knife here, the reason I have this, and it probably will stay with me, probably stay with me forever. I'm saying that, but, you know, never say never. Because this is my very first kind of over $100 knife that I ever bought, which is my Paramilitary 2, and it's the blacked out version. It's just the S30VN. Love it. It's been through a lot. It's a little bit beat up, but it's in, I say beat up, it's not really beat up. It just, when I sharpened it here and didn't know what I was doing in early days, I made some marks on it. Outside of that, the blade's in gorgeous shape. The handle's dynamite. It's got one little chip on the end. So it's, you know, it's definitely got some wear, don't get me wrong. But it was my very first. This was my very first knife. So this knife's been around the block. It's seen some time. And it got all the rest of this going. So one of my other earlier knives for me was this, as far as nicer knives, you know, obviously I had some other knives that were cheaper, you know, earlier on, but as far as nicer knives was the Benchmade Super Freak. I really like this knife as well. This is done with the M4 steel, and then the handle is done with a G10, and it's a layered G10 to give it that unique look that it has, which is gorgeous. It's got this beautiful liner that's done in the red with the red stoppers, or backspacers, I mean, excuse me. It does have the access lock. This thing's smooth as can be. Another beautiful knife. I did try selling it. I didn't go real cheap on it because I like the knife a lot, to be honest with you. So I probably didn't go low enough to truly sell it. I am still considering going lower and selling it because I got to thin this collection out somehow. But again, if I end up keeping it, I'm fine with it because it's been a user and I've enjoyed it as a user. One knife that probably, and again, I keep saying this, but I love this knife so much. This was my first 940 Benchmade Osborne. Again, never had held one, never owned one. I just happened to like this one when it came out from Blade HQ this past winter, around Christmas time. They did an exclusive on it with the jade here and then with the M4 steel. I love Benchmade's M4 steel. So in that breath, I went ahead and bought this knife and am super happy with it. Couldn't be happier. Phenomenal action. Great little pocket knife. Love it. Next knife we will talk about is going to be, that's one that again, I'm probably going to end up selling because it's got trade value to it. But we'll see. I really, really like it. I may just keep it as a user. Going on to my Spyderco Kapara 3 with the Maximate steel. This was my second Paramilitary 3. I sold my other one already. It was S110V, which also I loved. And that was done in the G10 as well, but that was the blue scales. I just really want to follow through with this Maximate. I want to see what it can do. I want to see how it's going to continue to patina. I want to see how this edge continues to maintain itself, etc. So I decided to keep this one out of the two pair of threes that I had. And no regrets, that knife's not going anywhere. It will definitely be part of my permanent collection. This one here, I believe, is going to be part of my permanent collection, as this is my Sebenza Small, and this is a 31 as well. This one has gone to the shop. It's been through a lot. Everything has basically been replaced on it. There's a big story behind it. Tim Reeve himself actually called me on this knife, told me he looked at it before it even left the factory. So this has been personally blessed. So from that standpoint, this is a knife that very well could stay in my collection forever. On this knife, this is an S45 VN. It's one of the first ones out there in the Sebenza, which is one of the reasons I like it so much. When I got this knife, it actually had S35 VN steel on it instead of 45, so they actually had to replace it. Then in addition to that, I had some issues with some play side to side, and they ended up having to replace the washers, replace the pivot bushing, and they had to replace the back pin as well. So this knife's been through a lot, but since they did do all that, this knife is like a perfect example of what you would want your Sebenza to be, because it is perfect. Really, really, really like the knife. That's the black micarta inlays. This one here is the natural micarta inlays. But again, these are the type of knives that I'm thinning my collection out to, just a couple. Instead of having so many, just having a few that I really like that I know I'm going to use regularly. I wanted to share these with you guys, as this has been hard for me. To be honest, it's been really, really hard for me to do this. And today was the first day I felt good about it, because I realized I do have this many knives still, and I love every single one of these knives. And I think these are, you know, if this is all the knives that I ever saw again, ever in the knife community, I could be very content for the rest of my life. So a lot of us talk about it. A lot of us take our whole collection out and said, what if we had to narrow it down to 5 knives? I'm doing it for real, guys. I'm doing it for real over the one more week, and I'll have this thing down to probably 5 to 7 knives. You know, I might not get all the way to 5, but I'll get to 5 or 6 or 7, something like that. But I am doing this for real. And again, as I get to the end of this, I'm going to explain reasons on why I picked every knife that I picked. As far as the ZT goes, the reason I kept this one is that's hands down my favorite ZT. It just is. You know, as far as the Kapara, I got to have a kitchen knife that's slash a pocket knife, and it was either that or the SpydieChef. I picked it over the SpydieChef. That was a very, very difficult battle for me. The Drunken, Again, that's leaving a lot of money on the table that I really could use right now, so it's very possible I'm going to have to give it up, but it's really hard for me to give it up because I just love the knife. I think it's beautiful. I love Spydercos in general. I'm a big fan. I don't know what to say, guys. There's some great knives here. If something does, meet your fancy and you're interested in it and you want to talk about it, do feel free to leave me a comment as well. I'm not doing this video for that reason. I'm doing it to show how I kind of stream my collection down. I couldn't get rid of this just for the simple fact that it was my first knife. This I could get rid of, it just didn't sell. This knife here, I am very on the fence because I want to keep it and make it a keeper because I really, really, really like it. But I could use the money, so this one will probably bring me some money too. So this one is very, very difficult for me, and I can't say I've made a final decision yet. This one 100% is a keeper, and that's because I love my Para 3 Maximate. I love the knife. I've got a lot of history with it. It was my #1 most carried knife last year. This one, I'm still on the honeymoon, so I'm not even thinking about it yet. That's what I got, guys. I don't know why. I just felt like putting that out there, sharing it with you, and I had a little bit of time on this Saturday afternoon, and I'm trying to keep things fresh and give you guys some new things to talk about, and hopefully you found this interesting. So do let me know your comments if you would, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe because I'm trying to break the 100 mark. I think I'm like real close. I'm at like 96 or 98, something like that. So I'm getting close to 100. Would love to get over 100, guys. I really want to keep doing this, but I need some support. So let me know that you guys are liking this if you are. And if you're not, let me know that too so I know if I'm wasting my time or not. But hopefully I'm not. That's all I got for now, guys. Signing off. Colorado Dave.